So I get to hear all the juicy details of you and Tasha's sex life, which I enjoy very much. I'm trying to talk her into letting me just sit in the corner with a notepad. But I also get to hear about the hard and fun parts of an open marriage. And it was so interesting last week to see you and Tasha's boyfriend playfully wrestling around, and also to just feel the joyful love that was in the room. And I know that it's not always the case in open marriage, but you and the other guy just bring such great things to the table. And, you know, all three of you guys get to benefit from it. But I wanted to ask, what has been the hardest part and also the most rewarding part of being in the open marriage?
Well, I would say the hardest part, let's start there first. Tosh had her first, she typically, the schedule we have right now is she spends the night once a week over at his house. Obviously, there's a limit on that because we have a kid, we have Bear. And so mama being gone all the time is not a good look. So it's not like a traditional polyamorous marriage where, you might split time equally, things like that. But I did want them to have a weekend together. So Christian asked me if it was cool to take Tosh to Vegas. And that was a hurdle for me to get over because I have so many memories of our relationship starting there. Tosh lived there. We would go out, and a lot of my first memories with her in Vegas. So, but once I got over the fact that she was going to go to Vegas and it'd be a different experience and kind of lost that fear of losing her, I said yes to the 3 days. And what happened was their flight got canceled. It got snowed in Vegas, believe it or not. So I tried to save the day, and I got them a room at the W to do a staycation so they could still have their 3 days, because obviously they're pretty fucking bummed that they weren't going to get to go. And I had already done a lot of work to prep myself for this. So it was like, no, let's actually try this. Yeah. And, I had a great time with Bear. Third day rolls around, and it's really, really hard for me. And I kept feeling like this pull, and it felt like a lot of pressure on my chest. And I even microdosed a little LSD and felt great. But when nighttime came around, she asked me what time she wanted to come home the next day. What time should I come home the next day? And I thought that was her asking for more time. And so in my mind, it was like, shit, you just saw this guy for 3 days and you still want to spend Sunday with him. Like, I'm dying over here. I need you to come home. And so it was pretty gut wrenching. I got really besides myself and got super short with her on text, like, don't worry about it, come home whenever you want, good night, that kind of shit. And the next day we all went out to Hop Dottie's for some delicious grass-fed burgers, and they popped in, and I still needed to nap Bear, so Tasha left with Christian, and Bear lost it because he hadn't seen his mom in 3 days, and here she just left again. So that really affected me too. And when after the nap, when she finally came home, like, we did not have a good discussion. There was a lot of yelling, and I ended up doing something that I had really been programmed to do from my mom, which was to leave. Anytime my parents would get into a huge fight, I would always see my mom leave, and she'd leave for 3 days at a time. And so thankfully we have some tools. So Wednesday night, we had some friends lead us through a 5-MeO DMT ceremony. And I've never really had visions from that until this one, where I actually saw my father's anger. I could feel it. And then I watched my mom leave the house, and I just felt heartbroken seeing her leave, because I knew she wasn't going to come back. And I knew while she was gone that I was going to be blamed for the fight, which is what my dad always did. And it just ripped me in half, and I cried I probably cried for 30 minutes letting that out. But it allowed me to see where that was coming from. Ultimately, it wasn't jealousy. It was the fear of abandonment. Yeah. And when she's gone, by that third day, it just really kicked that up. But seeing where that comes from, I had a shaman in Colombia tell me once this story after he did ayahuasca. He told his wife, I'm healed. And she's like, but how do you know? And he said, I know I'm healed. What are you talking about? I know I'm healed. She's like, but how do you know? And he's like, all right. Maybe I'm not healed, but I'm aware. And that awareness is all I need to heal myself. The medicine doesn't heal you, but you can heal yourself if you're aware of what's going on and where these things come from. So unpacking that was fucking tremendous. Like, it really allowed me to see where that all stems from, and then from there, just dissolve it. So I'm not thinking by any means that there's no work left to do and that I won't have other issues eventually. Open relationship puts pressure. I mean, it's the ceremony that doesn't end. So ayahuasca, you're done in 6 to 8 hours, and then you get some relief. No matter how hard the night is, it ends at some point. Open relationship doesn't end. You're always in it, and there's always work to be done, and it just exposes all the cracks in the relationship and all the cracks in our own personal belief. So I think that for sure was the hardest part of it. And it's nice to get through that. It's really nice to be looking on the other side of that with gratitude for Christian and gratitude for Tosh, and then a knowing, like, I know how much she loves me, and I know how much I love her, and that's a special thing. So I don't need to worry about losing that love.
Yeah. I gotta ask, because we've, talked a bit on here about open relationships as well, a couple other people that are into that type of thing we've had on the show. And when I think about putting myself in that situation, I feel like, good Lord, that sounds like so much work. So I don't even have a kid, like you guys have a kid, you've got this whole thing going on, you got your podcast, you got on it, you got so many things going on in your life. How or when or what was the moment that you came across this place where you're like, okay, I have enough space for this, or I'm up for the work of it?
Well, it was a mushroom ceremony with Paul Chek about a year ago. It was me, Paul, Aubrey, and Dr. Dan Engel, and it was really, really powerful. And I just kept having visions of us starting open, and it would draw up feelings like, fuck, we got a kid, I want to have more kids, why now? And it was telling me that this will help us grow. And as it helps us grow, that's really what our next child is requiring from us. We've learned we're going to have a daughter. She has not been conceived yet. So I saw this in a vision, and basically she has different requirements from us than Bear did. Bear came in and chose us to be his parents, and he's accepted when he came into the planet, and Wolf wants something different. So I think understanding that, like, it is okay, rather than waiting for our kids to be all grown up and out of college, like, start now. You're young, enjoy this, but also learn from it and grow at a much more rapid pace. And, of course, I asked, like, is Tosh seeing this? And the answer was no. And one of the intentions I wrote down, was I communicate truth, which is something Paul Selig talks quite a bit about. So I communicate truth just showed right back up in my space, like, oh, here you go. Here's your opportunity. You got to talk to her about this. As hard as this conversation is, that the downloads I'm getting right now are to start it now and to not wait. So we spoke for probably another 9 months about that before actually starting. And it's had every fucking hurdle you can think of. I mean, it's been really hard for her when I had a girlfriend, really hard for me when she first started with her boyfriend. But we're in such a beautiful spot right now. I mean, Aubrey and a lot of people that have been in this for several years are pretty impressed with our ability to learn and grow at such a pace. And it's an amazing spot right now. You guys asked me, what are the fruits of all this? I think obviously the low-hanging fruit is getting to have sex with other people. So it doesn't take away from my marriage with Tasha. It doesn't take away from my excitement for her body or for the pleasure of sex with her. It enhances it because it adds contrast to her. It's not, we've been together for 7 years. We've been married for 3.5. And, she never got stale or anything like that. But I certainly was okay with having other priorities. And now with this pressure from Open, she's my number one priority again. And it's really cool. It's such a good side effect to have that. And also to feel like she's brand new to me. Like her body is brand new. It's not the same old. And we're trying out fun new sex stuff and putting things in our butt. And it's a cool, wild ride. But and then aside from that, really this idea of building tribe. We don't have family out here. And if something were to ever happen to me, I would want Tosh to have somebody right in line who could take over the role of dad and just be there. But Christian is an amazing uncle. Bear absolutely loves him, and that's really where the rub is that Bear's 3.5. If he doesn't like somebody, he won't give him a hug. He won't talk to him. He won't play with them. But Christian's so good with kids that Bear really loves. He loves him every time he sees him. He's like, I love you, Uncle Christian. And he doesn't want him to leave. He throws a fucking fit when he leaves. I just did, Tasha's helping Whitney move right now. And Christian and I went to dinner with Bear. We went to Hop Dotties again tonight. And it was just the boys. And he's become a really close friend of mine, it's special because I've gained a friend. Bear's gained an uncle and Tasha's gained another lover. And I travel a lot for work. I do the podcast. I work in product development. So I've got supplement conferences to attend, and I'm going on a hunting trip for my birthday for 8 days with Aubrey, Ben Greenfield, Dr. Peter Attia, and Kyle Tierman. That's 8 days long where I'm going to be gone, and that would have been a motherfucker for Tosh to do that all by herself. So now she has someone who's going to be here, and sure, Christian will be plowing my wife the whole time I'm gone, but if it's okay, if you can get over that and actually cherish it and think like, yeah, I love Tosh so much that I want her to have sex while I'm gone. And even if it's with another person, I want her to experience pleasure all the fucking time. I want her to have orgasms while I'm gone. I want her to have all the feels. And I want her to have help with Bear. So she's not single momming it for 8 days at a time. So really, it's complementary in every possible way.
Yeah, it builds a little, like your own little commune there, your own little tribe, almost in your house. Yeah.
I agree. I love Christian, and I think that you're amazing. I've learned so much from being around you and what makes a partner and a father. So when I left Friday night or whenever it was, I sent a text. It was like, you are one lucky lady after being around both of them. And just, I've never really been around, know a lot of people in open marriage or open relationships, but I've never been around everyone at once to experience something like that. And I don't know if it's all like that, but there was a lot of joy and love, and just it didn't feel as, I would imagine the egos would get in the way and competition, and there was none of that. So it was really beautiful.
I think there's definitely not a lot of relationships like that in poly. I'm reading this book called More Than Two, and they talk quite often about poly that fails. And one of the ways that poly fails is the don't ask, don't tell policy. So you at least need to know the partners and have some sort of relationship with them. Yeah. I mean, then there's secrets, and then it is like you're basically allowed to cheat. That's the only agreement, So, but having a relationship with my wife's partner is completely different, and I couldn't imagine it any other way. It makes it so much easier the closer I've gotten to him, because he's my brother and I care about him. And I don't just want Tosh to experience pleasure. I want him to experience pleasure. I want him to have an amazing life and be fulfilled and find an awesome primary partner for himself. But, all that said, it really is a special thing. And it's so much better when you have the connection to the other people.
Yeah.
So does any type of competition come into play, though? I mean, I feel like it has to a little bit, right?
Well, for sure. I mean, I bought him condoms as like the first go around, like to say, yes, you've allowed me to have sex with other women. Let me really say yes to this, and I'll go buy condoms. And then as I was buying condoms, I realized very quickly I need to buy 2 types of condoms, regular size and Magnum. And I was like, I don't know. And I don't wear Magnums. Turns out that he does. And so I was like, but, thinking about all those things, it really doesn't matter. It's about variety and novelty. And the fact that he has a different shaped penis, that's a different length, that's all great. That's all great things. I mean, there's a level of mastery you have with your partner after 7 years. And I know all the buttons to push on Tosh. It's fairly often that she'll have multiple orgasms in each experience. And that's not bragging. That's just like, we know each other, and she can get me there very quickly too.
Some men don't know after 20 years. They still don't know.
Well, yeah. When I was in college, I read She Comes First, which was really a book about
thank you.
eating pussy. And it takes the pressure off. There's so much pressure I had in college of performance and performance anxiety and all that. And fuck, I couldn't get hard for a lot of ladies in college just because I was so nervous. And then I read that book, and it was like, hey, if you make her come first, you don't have to worry about a damn thing. If you last 30 seconds, big fucking deal. She already got hers. It's the only initial when you're in and out and you're like, oh, is that good for you? Like, no, it wasn't good for her. She didn't get to go across the finish line. Right. So that really set like a different mindset. But I'm reading Urban Tantra, and Aubrey's talking to me about BDSM and all this other stuff. So, I mean, the world of sex goes super deep. And I don't know that I'll be wearing dog masks and leather and all that shit. But, there's more room to explore for sure. And I think if you're curious and you have the desire to please, fuck, you can take it as far as you want to go. And that's a really cool thing.
I just ordered the Tantric Mind. But I know Natasha just like raves about y'all's sex life, so that's probably really helpful because it takes out kind of the competition, because she's already happy with what she has and she's already being pleased, so I think y'all got such a good dynamic and such a healthy place to start from. It's not like y'all are open because y'all have a lack.
Yeah, no doubt. That was another way that relationships fail, is if you start poly thinking this will fill the hole for the thing that I need, right? Like there's something missing in my current relationship, so I'm going to find it in someone else. That never really works out because it doesn't address the issue you have with your main partner to begin with, if you're a monogamous couple starting open.
Right.
So you're pretty advanced in...
Wait, before you move on to that, I got to ask you, because we're not done here. We're not done here, guys. So I got to ask about the threesome that I know you... I don't know what it's called, awarded for her birthday.
All birthday sex.
I gotta know, because this is with Christian, her boyfriend, as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was it like?
So I did a float tank on a microdose of acid, and this isn't me saying that psychedelics will make you want to do polyamory.
But everyone who's come on here has said that, so go ahead.
So I do this float and I have a vision of me and Christian having sex with Tosh. And it's something I've wanted to do for her. In a previous relationship that lasted 6.5 years, that was the way that I had threesomes with other girls. I had to, it's a two-way street. I got to pave the way. Let me pay it forward. So the first, we started with two guys. And then, we went to girls after that. But, in the vision, in the float tank, it really came down to Tosh really loves and cares for Christian. And she really loves and cares for me. So who would be better? It's not going to be, some of my other buddies that she's friends with but doesn't have a real relationship with. It should be him. Because the thing that'll fuck a threesome up is if you feel uncomfortable or nervous. And sure, there was nerves, but I think we were able to get over them quickly because both Christian and I thought it was hot watching the other dude in her, So it was a cool thing. And Tosh had this great idea. Her birthday is Valentine's Day in February. So 2 days prior to that, she said, "Hey, let's have an icebreaker. Why don't we get down tonight?" And we went to this event with
Wednesday Martin.
Yeah, Wednesday Martin, who wrote the book Untrue. And so we went to, and Aubrey and Whitney were there speaking, and I even got on stage for a minute. And we all went home that night and we hooked up, and it was awesome. There was nerves, but it was awesome. Then 2 nights later on the birthday, we did, which was surprisingly rad. And that's something I've never done before. It was a first for all of us. And it was really, really fucking cool. Like, I had a harder time on her birthay not coming than trying to get to the finish line. Like,
did you feel him in there when you were in there?
Yeah, when I was. We can get a little.
Which one did you take? Yeah,
I offered the ass to him because I thought I would come too quick if I went in her ass. And he said no. I think it'll be easier for me in the vagina. And I said okay. So I went in her ass, and he was underneath her with her face down, and then I went from behind, but it wasn't really working. So Jason Ellis had taught us, like, the best move is for the guy in the ass to be on bottom with the girl face up. Then both y'all spread your legs, and then the guy goes in. Now, I'm sure every fucking guy listening to this is like, oh, your balls touch. That's
Right.
so
That's what I pictured.
And yes, that for sure fucking happens. But who the fuck cares? Like, when you're in it like that, I mean, we were switching sides before we went to DP, and both of us were eating out Tosh after the guy had just fucking her, and it was like neither one of us fucking cared. It's really about pleasing her. The woman is the star of the show in that scenario. And I think in a lot of ways it's easier. If you're a guy with 2 girls, it's almost like you have a shot clock. That's something Aubrey told me. You're on the shot clock on how much attention you give to one versus the other. You can't focus on one for too long, so you're constantly going back and forth. And it's really hard to get them there. But, women have 3 holes. So you could definitely, there's something for everybody, with 2 guys in the mix. And I think it was hands down the fucking hottest sexual experience any of us had ever had, and remains that way. So it was a great success. We had no trouble finishing. She came first. We had her on a massage table. So we put her on a massage table for 30 minutes. And
I bought her a massage table last year for her birthday. That's he's a giver in every way.
It's a really great thing. I don't know if you guys have read I know Jade has, Mercedes. Have you read the 5 love languages?
Yeah.
Yeah. So both of us are touch. That's our number 1 love language. So massage is a great way for us to connect. But yeah, I had the idea of throwing her on the massage table. We had a 4-hands massage on her and just went to town, loosening her up, getting her relaxed. And then I touched Christian on the shoulder, tapped my tongue. He went down on her while I was massaging her back, and I ran to the room and grabbed her little Lilu vibrator, and she was able to get hers in. And then we went to the room and we got ours in. So it really was top to bottom one of the coolest experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like a blast.
I wonder if our listeners are listening. Yeah.
I know. I don't want to know what our listeners are doing while listening.
Yeah.
I do not want to know. Well, thanks for those details, Kyle. We got to get Tasha on here to ask her side of things,
I already did.
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
So you're pretty advanced in psychedelics, and I was always scared to try them until I met you and Tosh and heard what they had done in each of your lives and your marriage also. There was just no question that you guys had received so much enlightenment and had become the people you are today because of your ceremonies. I'm super thankful you guys helped start my journey with those medicines. My Mercedes, I don't know if you know, but my first ceremony ever was with Kyle. So Kyle, can you tell us about one of your most transformative plant medicine ceremonies?
Well, yeah, let me think here. I usually try to go recent because if I go back to the beginning, I used to do mushroom ceremonies with my coach Wheatsy at a Native American spot, a reservation up in NorCal, and he introduced us to ayahuasca. There's been 22 ayahuasca ceremonies. We're gearing up to go to Soltara later this year and do the next 3. So I'll be at 25 there. I have countless mushroom ceremonies. I don't know. That's such an open-ended question.
I know.
I mean, my first.
Maybe just one that you think would benefit our listeners to hear. I know that's Ethan still.
I know.
Yeah, well, let me jump around a little bit. You know, my first ceremony really was like a death, which is a fairly common trip report in ayahuasca, is to die or realize that you're not your body. So like this idea that, I mean, I never really vibed with religion when I was growing up. There was too many loopholes and things that I didn't ring true to me. And but I felt spiritual, and I felt like there could be God. I just didn't have a direct contact with that until really with ayahuasca, and I felt like my body just dissolve into the ground, and I was gone. I was out of my body, and I realized like, oh, whatever consciousness is, you can call it a soul, spirit, whatever. Like I'm that. I'm not my body. And as my body goes, I will remain. And there's been many experiences where I've asked about reincarnation, and been shown it in various ways. Even just with the death of the body, I watched my body rot on the ground underneath a tree, and mushrooms grow out of it. And birds had come by to eat me, and worms and everything, until it was gone. But that energy, even here on Earth, it just changes. It doesn't go away. It doesn't dissolve. This body dissolves, but it just changes. The energy moves elsewhere. So like the idea that we don't exist after this, it's not even true on this plane, you know, let alone
according to science.
Whatever we do after, I don't believe that's the case either. So, you know, I think that was monumental in the way that I look at the world and the way I view life. And I certainly think differently now about God and many different experiences that I've had. But I'd say that's probably one of the bigger ones. And then, you know, the textbook stuff where you relive trauma from your childhood, that's a form of purging as well, you know, so you can puke in the bucket, you can shit your pants, you can cry, you can laugh, all those things. But my second ceremony, I remember just laying in my bed crying as a 7-year-old, and I was in the room just letting it out. And I probably cried for a solid hour. That was my purge. And I could see my parents fighting, just screaming in each other's faces, and my mom leaving. And all I had was compassion re-looking at that. You know, as I revisited the experience, I didn't feel like my 7-year-old self experiencing it. I felt like an adult who could see them in pain. I could feel their pain. I could feel their fear. You know, all the pressure of making money, providing for a family, and doing those things, all the lack of communication, and all the things that they had happened to them as children that shaped them who they are. You know, there's no script on how to raise kids. The first thing I realized when I had Bear was, fuck, I'm a big kid raising a kid. And then I thought about my parents. My dad was the exact same age as me, a big kid raising a kid. And my mom was, you know, 10 years younger than my dad. So really a child raising a child. And that just gives you a different look at that. You know, like we all do the best with whatever we can. And, you know, anything that's happened to you is, you have to understand, like they didn't know a better way. So really seeing that firsthand gave me a great deal of compassion. It also was a huge release for me to travel back to that and say like, hey, that's all okay. You know, I'm not there. I don't have to be a part of that anymore. I could learn from that and let go of it and forgive. And, you know, a weight's lifted when you truly can forgive. And you're not just saying it verbally, but you fucking really believe it. You really do forgive the people for the things that have happened to you.
Yeah, I think that too, just realizing that our parents at any point of our upbringing were doing the very best that they possibly could from their domestication.
With the tools they had.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt.
So is that bringing us up to speed on what your most recent experience that was really, really powerful for you is?
No, those were my first two ayahuasca experiences. But I would say this one last week with 5-MeO, that's what I was talking about, with reliving watching my mom leave and seeing that programming of abandonment really still there, you know, and that was the source of me arguing with Tasha and then just up and leaving. I mean, I'm doing the exact same thing my mom did, and, you know, and that was what she knew to do, because she didn't know a way out. She didn't know how to communicate, and they were like two rams just butting heads all the time. So, I mean, seeing that really was one of the most healing things. Plus 5-MeO, I mean, they call it God particle. You know, if DMT is the spirit molecule, 5-MeO is God particle. I've had so many experiences where I feel like I'm in unconditional love. I'm like, it feels like I'm inside a star. It's pure white light. I can feel it radiate through my entire body. And it's one of the most healing things on the planet. It's also one of the scariest because it's a rocket ship ride. But, you know, it's very quick onset and takes you very deep quickly. But I think the more experience you have with it, the better you learn how to work with the medicine. And it certainly was one of the most impactful ceremonies that I've ever had.
Yeah, that sounds
I haven't
really,
heard of that one.
really deep.
It's the Sonoran Desert Toad.
Oh.
Oh, the toad.
Toad. But
Toad.
it's super interesting to me that whatever therapy you're going to go into, whether it be a plant medicine that you're using as a tool for that, or you're doing, a more mainstream typical working with a psychologist or a psychiatrist, we always go back to our childhood. I mean, it's like, for all of us, that's where those theta brain waves are, really making these imprints that we have to really go back and dig up. I think people sometimes poo-poo the idea of it's shit that happened in your childhood that you need to look at, bro. And they just say that, nah, I dealt with, that's not a problem for me. It's not what's happening right now.
A lot of people don't feel the need to hash it up.
Yeah.
But if you don't deal with your trauma,
I think, I've had therapists and psychiatrists since I was 7 years old. And I never really felt like I was able to dig through the things that I'm able to with psychedelics. Like psychedelics, all is revealed. Whatever's behind the curtain gets yanked back, and you could be stuffing shit down from yesterday that's going to come up, let alone 20, 30 years ago. I mean, anything that's on the surface that's wanting to come up will come up for you. And the beautiful thing is it's different every time. Each experience is unique. And you don't get the kitchen sink thrown at you on your first try. It allows you to unpack these things slowly, bit by bit, over time, and when you can handle it. And a lot of times you don't necessarily get what you want, but you get what you need. You get what you're ready for. And I think that's certainly been the case with me. Yeah,
I think if you can believe that whatever is going to come up, you are ready for, that's kind of the first part of making a successful journey through whatever the plant is going to tell you or whatever the experience is going to tell you. I think a lot of people, though, go into it with fear that they're not ready. And then that's where you have some issues come up that you can't seem to deal with. I think it can be problematic for some is all.
Yeah, no doubt. Some people aren't prepped, but a lot of people have trouble sitting still meditating. A lot of people don't feel comfortable in their own skin. So to have something that powerful really just show you everything that's going on inside, you have to be prepped for that. And you also have to know what the possibilities are. If you just take something like even psilocybin, magic mushrooms, people are like, oh, I'm going to take this thing, I'll see some cool shit, and I'll feel really high, and it'll be great. And they compare it to something like marijuana, and that's not how it works. Rick Doblin was one of my first interviews, and he said, there are no bad trips. There's only difficult moments. But one of the ways you can have a bad trip per se is if you don't realize that stuff can come up for you. You think you're just going to feel high when you do this thing, and then you start having to do the work. So yeah, if you don't realize you could relive rape or molestation or any horrific event in your life, and you spend the next 5 hours reliving that could be a bad trip. But if you know that's on the table, that it's a possibility and that you're going to come out of it better, it's a totally different framework. And of course, who's guiding you? Is it a black belt shaman?
The container.
Or is it just, who's this container? Who holds the space? And what techniques do they have to bring you out? Are they playing songs on an iPod, or are they singing Icaros live and directing traffic and the flow of the energy? It's two completely different experiences.
Yeah.
And you've been really open about your struggle with depression. So has using plant medicine helped with that? And what are the tools that you use when it comes to, managing that if it comes up again in you?
Yeah, I definitely, when I finished football at ASU, I was really depressed. Used a lot of bad drugs like Coke and Molly and anti-anxiety medication and Vicodin and just anything I get my fucking hands on. And was in a turbulent relationship at the time and decided to kill myself and tried and failed, thankfully. And spent about a week in the loony bin. I saw a psychiatrist and a psychologist for a while. But, fighting really led the way out of that for me. And I think finding plant medicines during fighting really helped me to leave fighting and be okay with it. Now, it's not like I have to go balls to the walls with a heroic dose of mushrooms or go to the Amazon or do ayahuasca. There's plenty of modalities. A float tank, even without psychedelics, can be really transformative. With a microdose of LSD, I think it could be an even better experience. But they're all tools, right? And they're all technologies. So I think having access to those tools and many others, I've learned countless working in exercises from Paul Chek, who's been a mentor of mine over the years. So this idea of working out as energy expending, sweating, breathing hard, sympathetic nervous system, not parasympathetic. So it's more fight or flight based instead of rest and digest. We think that we're going to sit on our ass all day at work and then go grind ourselves into the ground for an hour and then we're fine. And that's not the case at all. We have to work in. So breathwork practices are essential. Walking meditation, where I can actually move my body instead of just sitting in place. Tai Chi, Qigong, all these things have really been transformative for me. So again, just more tools in the toolbox that have really been essential. And I've leaned heavily on these since starting open. I mean, I walk barefoot and it's a 1.1 mile loop around on it. And there's been days where I almost wore a hole in my feet because I did so many laps. I did fucking 9 laps one day. I did almost 10 miles.
Oh my God.
And it was just clearing my head, clearing my head of shit. And, so many great thinkers from Albert Einstein to Benjamin Franklin would walk and contemplate things that are going on. Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato would all walk in the courtyard with a team of people following them, listening to them, talking about their philosophy of life. And we really can jog our brain a bit when we're in movement, as long as it's not taxing. So walking and thinking through the shit of life can be really powerful practice. And that doesn't require oming, which is dope, but it doesn't require a mantra. It doesn't require a lot of the things that people think are woo-woo. I personally love all that shit, but there's something for everyone is my point. And I think the more you know and the more that you feel, like when Wim Hof says feeling is believing, like if you feel a difference, that's something that you're going to go back to. If you work out and you hate it, you'll stop working out. But if you find the thing that you like in forms of meditation and breath work, then you'll come back to it. And I think that having all these things across the board, I've needed them all, but it's been great having them.
Yeah. And it's not even like you don't like the physical feeling at the moment of working out, but if you can't figure out why you like working out, what the end result is that you really want to see happen, or find a really good reason that motivates you to do that thing. Even with ice baths, like nobody likes a fucking ice bath, but you do it because you want to face this place in you that you need to get through, this challenge you need to face in order to be better. And if you're addicted to being better, then you're going to fucking ice bath,
I don't like the workouts Tasha puts me through, but I really want a butt like hers.
There you go. And the reason. But yeah, to your point about just taking a walk can help jog your brain and really, clear your adrenals and get that stuff running through your body properly. We say on this podcast a lot, motion before emotion, because when you feel these places come up in you that are just, whether it be dark or just you're angry or whatever the thing is, just start moving, man. Whatever the problem is, you might not completely heal it by taking a walk or a jog or whatever, but just by moving, you're going to be better. It can't get worse. It's going to be better from that. So good tip there.
So I know that you guys didn't circumcise Bear, and one of my biggest regrets in life, not just in parenting, but in life, is circumcising Soul. Can you go into the reasons behind why you chose not to circumcise?
Well, first, let me tell you, it's not the end of the world. I'm circumcised, and it's okay. It's not a problem. Yeah, I remember Joe Rogan talking about, and this is not where I pick up my advice on how to raise kids, but he said, the human penis is not a male jack-o'-lantern. It's not designed to be chopped up and mangled and done whatever with. There's so many kids internationally that are born uncircumcised and left that way their entire fucking lives. So it's, it really came down to religion, and back in times thousands of years ago, when it was a far less cleanliness. How am I saying this right? Far less fucking clean environment. Yeah. There you go. People would have infections, and if your penis got infected, it's a real issue. So, but I mean, tribes now in South America, they don't circumcise either, and there's still plenty of things you can do. So one of the things when Bert first had an infection was we rubbed coconut oil there, which is incredibly antimicrobial, antibacterial. And even though we got him antibiotics just in case, he didn't end up taking them. So, there's no doubt there are natural remedies. Mother Nature has a kitchen and a pharmacy all to herself. And if we know how to work with these things, they can be really powerful. But it just didn't resonate. Bear is an all-natural baby. He was naturally born. Tasha did a great job birthing him. And he, to this day, hasn't had antibiotics. We've been very fortunate. He has never had Tylenol even. So, or ibuprofen. I think he's just, there's elderberry and different extracts and things that we use. But I mean, for the most part, he's always able to overcome the cold without pharmaceuticals. And that's really good, because then if you ever get staph infection or MRSA or something like that, the antibiotics will really work. And on top of that, he still has a flourishing microbiome. He's born vaginally. We know how important that is for lifelong health and immunity. And I can see it in him. So, really just trying to remain natural in all areas and not muck with this perfect body God gave him. I think that's really where our head was at with not circumcising.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad that I have you guys in my life to not feel like such a crazy person because I, do all the same things. So
yeah, I know you're bummed on that, but I mean, we're just coming across this information that this was a bad idea, so you got to forgive yourself a little bit there, or,
well, it's considered cosmetic in most states now. So by the time our kids are older, like half of the people are not going to be circumcised, so
Right. Yeah,
it's phasing out is what I mean.
And
so
now
that's the
I
thing.
just listened to, I think I sent it to you, something about, what do you call it, foreskin restoration, and there's all kinds of other options there. But even so, I mean, if, like you're saying, Kyle, you're circumcised, my husband's circumcised, I mean, they're fine. They're living fine. Us women, we don't, it's not a difference for us so much. So men listening, if you are uncircumcised, don't, hurt yourself trying to fix that.
No, I'm not shaming that. I just, it's such a hard intro to Soul's life. He was just this peaceful little baby, and then someone just cut him, and it was just a bad memory for all of us. But
well, maybe we'll change someone's mind by listening to this today. All right, Kyle. So we have some questions for you from the Majic Mob. Mrs. V Dubs, who sends us all kinds of good questions. She asks, what are the top 2 most rewarding experiences of your life and top 2 most challenging experiences of your life?
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I don't like the question.
no, that's okay.
Top 2 most rewarding. I mean, bear is the low hanging fruit. There's no doubt having a child is first up there. I think I'd have to say meeting Tosh is the other, because she's been such a powerful influence in my life. She's held me through all my shit, and I used to drink like an asshole unconsciously. And I wasn't a jerk when I was drunk, but, all the bad drugs, cocaine, all these things, and a lot of alcohol, and really didn't treat myself well. Even as I was learning about health and wellness and eating organic food and all these things, I lived, like a double-edged sword. And there was definitely 2 sides to the coin of my life. But thankfully to the plant medicines and for Tosh helping me realize that, like, hey, this isn't healthy, what you're doing to yourself. And then still having the patience for me to work it out on my own. That's really been special. She's a special person. And I think, she's always said yes. Anything I've asked for, like, hey, let's do mushrooms together. Oh, I really have never done any. She had never smoked fucking weed. She'd never done any drug. Wow. And she's like, yeah, I've kind of been interested in that. Tell me about how it is. And I told her about the ceremonies we were doing with my coach. And she came and she went balls deep on her very first ceremony in the sweat lodge. So, she's always said yes. She said yes to ayahuasca. Of course, she had me do that first. It didn't sound too appealing, puking and possibly shitting your pants in the woods with no running water. But, she sent me out to one. She was at the very next one on my second ceremony. And, we've spoken for a very long time about open relationship. When we finally got married, I told her, if at any point in our marriage you want to have sex with another man, that's okay. Just let me know. Just don't do it behind my back, and I'll say it's okay. I'll say yes to that. And of course, she freaked the fuck out about that. Like, what? You want to fuck other girls? You'd be okay with that? You wouldn't be jealous? And I'm like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, it's okay. Like, it is okay. We're fucking human beings. We desire other people. And that's a beautiful thing that I've shared with her throughout our relationship, because we just started as friends. We would talk about all the people we'd been with and really share that information with one another. So it was never awkward hearing about that. And it's fucking comedy to me that so many people have a hard time when they bring up old partners or different experiences.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, bro, every person your wife has been with shaped her into the person she is. Does she suck dick really well? Guess what? She learned it from someone else. She learned it when she was younger.
The practice was before you.
Yeah. It was all those things. I mean, just having appreciation and gratitude for those experiences and realizing it's not weird. It'd be so much more work if you waited till you're, waited to have sex until you were married. Like, so much more fucking work. So, that's another really special part of our marriage. And then, the ability, like I said, she says yes. So we talk about open for a long time, and then she says yes to it. And that's a really cool thing. It's been a hard but very powerful experience for both of us, and we're really in a beautiful spot. But I know she'll go to the ends of the earth with me, and I've never been in a relationship like that. I really haven't. I've had long relationships. I almost proposed to my last girlfriend. I made a down payment on a wedding ring. Wow. So, it was a serious 6.5-year relationship, but that ended thankfully, and this one started, and I couldn't be happier. We've got a beautiful family, and we want to add to that family. while we're doing open. And, everything looks different. I don't know what my life's going to be like in 5 years, but it's been a great ride so far.
What I like about her saying yes is that the things you're asking her to do are, they may not be easy, but they're to grow. And so you saying that she's one of the most rewarding experiences because she's saying yes and, doing all these things with you. Her answer might be you, because you ask her to do these things, So it's really cool that, the things you're asking her to do, it's not I would say yes to those things, it's not things that like, man, that's a really low frequency and like really like something that's going to not benefit us in life. It's not going to help us in life. So I love that the things that you are asking her to do, it's like a yes with an exclamation point, even though they don't sound super easy, all of them.
Yeah. So what are the most challenging experiences?
Challenging, I would say for sure growing up in a household where my dad never beat my mom or anything like that, but I remember him ripping the corded phone back when they had corded phones out of the wall and throwing it through the closet door. I remember the cops being called when I was super young, my sister just sobbing nonstop, and we had a bunk bed, so she sobbed the whole night. I had a lot of painful memories from my childhood, and really, I've read the book Nonviolent Communication, which is, I think, fucking so good. It's one of the best books I've ever read.
I'm writing it down.
They were the opposite of that. Whatever nonviolent communication is, that's not how they spoke to each other. So really, I think one of the most beautiful things you can do for your kids is show them how much you love each other, and to show that's a better teaching than any type of talk. I could tell my kids all day long till I'm blue in the face how much I love Natasha, but that doesn't mean shit if I don't show it.
Right.
Kissing her and touching her and showing her how much I love her, that's what they see, and then they want to pattern that going forward. So I think that was one of the hardest experiences of my life was childhood. And then, getting done with football, really feeling lost in life and hating the school that I had. I quit my senior year because I couldn't stand it at ASU. I couldn't stand the thought of having a desk job. I didn't want to go into sales, which both my parents did. And, living 100% on commissions is really fucking stressful, not knowing what amount of money is going to come in each month and seeing that affect both of them. And then, of course, the roller coaster of emotions from cocaine and ecstasy and anti-anxiety pills, where when you stop taking them, you have a flood of anxiety, the very thing your body's been artificially blocking. They're all Band-Aids at best. And I think actually finding these tools to do the work has been all the difference in the world. But I'd say, right after college, football, being depressed, attempting to kill myself, and, growing up in a pretty violent household.
Yeah. Those are definitely challenges. So another one from the Majic Mob, coming from a loyal supporter, Mr. @Drady. Not sure if I'm saying that right. DRADI. I think it's Dr. Addy, actually. You seem to have an amazing connection with Bear. So what advice do you have for me as a new father for this first year of my son's life?
All right. One, get the book, The Nourishing Traditions Book of Child and Baby Care.
I literally took it to the hospital with me.
It is for sure the best book I've ever read on kids, on how to treat them naturally, how to feed mom, how to feed the kid, what their first food should be, all that stuff, what they need in their environment, everything from how to play with them to the importance of not letting them, sit in front of a TV screen all day long. I mean, all these things come up in that book, but I think it's Dr. Sally Fallon Morell and Thomas Cowan. Oh, no, Thomas Cowan's the doctor. Sally Fallon Morell is the head of the Weston A. Price Foundation in New York. Both people are just fucking amazing. I mean, they're incredibly gifted and talented people, and there's so much valuable stuff in that book. Then it's about play. That's really the lesson I keep getting in psychedelics is just to play. My favorite memories, to give my dad some love, my favorite memories with my dad were he always told me he loved me. And he meant it. And he hugged me, and he would say, even after huge fights and things like that, or after he spanked me or any of that, he'd let me know, like, hey, I really love you. And play. He would spend fucking 8 hours on a Sunday throwing 3 flies up to me and all my friends out in a park. He didn't care. He'd watch football if we weren't doing anything, but he would change his whole schedule around to make sure that we got to play with him. And he showed up at every one of my football games. He'd give me a big thumbs up and holler at me and watch me play. So, I mean, all those things made a huge impact. And those are some of the beautiful memories that I have with him. And I think with kids, we so often get caught up in this idea of, I want to teach, like I'm your dad, so I'm going to teach you how to throw a football. I'm going to teach you how to play the game of baseball. I'm going to teach you the rules in basketball. And it's like, kids don't give a fuck about rules. They just want to play, and they'll make shit up as they go along. And that's what's cool. If you let kids use their imagination, it'll flourish that thing. It just fans the flame. And, we've got Bear. He just did his first day at Austin Waldorf, and that a lot of their stuff comes from Rudolf Steiner. He's, the inventor of biodynamic and organic farming 100 years ago. This guy wrote 118 books on different topics, and he's written over 118 books in general, but separate topics, 118 different books. He was an Austrian wizard. So I think, where you put your kids really matters, and they put an emphasis on art, on music, and on language, on acting and free play and creativity. And so much of that is lost now in public schools, and really, what you provide for them, it's not a cheap school, but it's worth every penny to me because I know that my kid's going to be well-rounded. I mean, there's no doubt Bear has all the energy in the world. He's going to gravitate towards some sport, hopefully not fighting. Maybe it'll be basketball, maybe it'll be wrestling. I don't know. But in that, you can't just have that grind of wrestling or the grind of whatever sports gives you. That will teach you many things. But so is having that creative flow, that outlet where you can express whatever beauty is inside of you through music and language and, of course, with art. And I think that's really critical right now. We don't really have that much anymore these days. So if you can find a Waldorf, that much better. Right. Your kid's too young for now, but or a good Montessori school, also good. So I think how you educate your children, letting other people teach your kids, and then your job is to play. That's about it. Check out when you get done from work. That's something Ben Greenfield talked to me about. He works his ass off, but the second he picks his kids up from school, his twin boys, he's 100% dad. He's not doing a single email. He's not doing a single phone call. And it's funny because I learned that from Ben. And then, if Bear sees me on my phone doing an email, he'll come over and smack the phone up. And I'm going to be like, all right, you're right, buddy. Okay. Yeah. And just acknowledge him and give him the time that he deserves.
Well, that's cool. All right. Well, I got to ask you, because we got a big MMA following, why not fighting?
Well, the easiest answer for that is that fighters make shit for money and get brain damage. So it took me quite a while to recover from my traumatic brain injuries in fighting. That was one of the reasons I got into a keto diet. It really helped lower inflammation and just dissolve old nagging injuries. But more importantly, my brain felt like it turned on for the first time since I was a child. And there's a lot of science supporting how it affects cognitive function and sleep. But really, I mean, I just felt amazing. I felt like, shit, I should go back to college now and actually learn stuff and retain information. But, there's no doubt it's not as bad as boxing, but there's no fucking doubt that you're going to hurt your brain in fighting. Yeah. And, there's so many beautiful things that I learned from fighting. I don't want to discount it at all because it is the greatest possible test on earth. I mean, you can know meditation and quiet mind and all this shit, but if you have somebody trying to knock you out, it's a whole different ballgame. And then if you have all your friends and family watching you and it's on fucking pay-per-view and there's 20,000 people in the stands, like that's a whole different level of test. And so that's one of the coolest things about it. But, getting paid 10 grand to fight killers, in a division that has Daniel Cormier and John Jones. I mean, it's not good. Glover Teixeira, he beat me up so bad I couldn't find the locker room. I got lost walking from the cage and I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to get a longer suspension. So I just walked by people making fucking small talk until I could finally find where my coach was and make it to the locker room. And there's no doubt that stuff takes its toll. So I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. I think there's many other ways you could scratch that itch and test yourself. Wrestling being a great way, jiu-jitsu being another great way, the gentle art. And single sports are really important for kids, especially now with this cookie cutter safety bubble bullshit world we're living in where parents want to protect every little move their kid makes. That's not preparing them for anything. I don't agree with everything Jordan Peterson says, but he is spot on when it comes to the negligence of people in school all the way up through college. Now, even at university, it's a fucking really big issue because we're not prepping kids for anything. The world is competition. You can lose your job. Corporate world is cutthroat. Fucking people get fired all the time on it. We hire a lot of people, but yeah, you got to do well. You got to perform. And I think understanding that there are winners and losers, that's okay because it teaches you how to deal with loss and it teaches you how to learn successfully. And it really gives you the drive to want that more. So I think that's something that as we find more and more team sports that don't keep score and let everyone get equal playing time, even the shitty kids who shouldn't be on the fucking team, that's a disservice to all those children. So getting them into a sport where they will actually test themselves like wrestling or jiu-jitsu and learn some self-defense, which is incredibly good for self-esteem and confidence and getting that chip off their shoulder. If kids want to fight, it's because they haven't fought. It's because they have anger inside. But if you're on the jiu-jitsu mats every day, I know very few black belts that want to go out and street fight. It's not worth their fucking time. And they've already been tapped so many times. There's a humbling component to it that's built right into the system. So I think that's something that I'll definitely have my son do and daughters and, whatever they want. But some form of martial arts I think is really important.
Yeah. I think I was just hearing about how much money baseball players make. It's a gruesome schedule, but I know it's also like not as many injuries. So maybe Bear and Soul will play baseball together. But
everyone and their mom tries to make it to the MLB. That's something. Kids play little league from a very young age. I started at 12 years old, and kids have been playing for like fucking 8 years. I felt like a clown out there. So
you're so good at play though, Kyle. Every time I'm over there, like I know Bear and my kids, they just love you. You're like everybody's happy place for the kids. Like they feel just as home at your house as they do at my house, and your house is like it's literally like the fun place to go. So that's all because of you and Tasha being so playful. And I need to be more playful also. That's a big goal of mine this year. So we do a pick your poison on every episode. This one's from Dylan on Instagram. I think I know your answer, but would you rather never be able to eat meat or never be able to eat vegetables?
Oh, for sure I'm getting rid of vegetables. There's no question. There's too many good nutrients in meat. I mean, let me put it this way. First of all, people that would wonder why, because there's vegans in the world and there's carnivore dieters in the world. And much of, this information age is trying to decipher what's bullshit and what isn't. But genetically, 50% of the population here in the U.S., if you go on 23andMe and then outsource your raw data to foundmyfitness.com, Dr. Rhonda Patrick's site, which my wife and I did, both of us cannot take omega-3 fatty acids from plants like chia seeds or flax and convert them into usable DHA and EPA, which are absolutely critical for cognitive function and brain development. That means we can only get usable forms of omega-3s from fish oil, from egg yolk, from different foods that actually have it, but not from plants. Same thing goes for vitamin A, which is also critical for cell replication. If I eat a carrot or a sweet potato, I'm getting the carbohydrates and fiber from that. I'm not getting the vitamin A from that because my body won't take it and make usable vitamin A. Now, grass-fed liver, that has a huge source of vitamin A and also has a huge source of heme iron. It has a number of B vitamins. It's probably the most nutrient-dense superfood on the planet. And it doesn't taste great, but...
Yeah, I had to give you the liver that I made because my kid said, Mama, you cooked poo-poo.
We've been giving Bear liver since he was super young. That's one of the things they talk about in the book, too, in Nourishing Traditions. And, thankfully, there is a place called grasslandbeef.com, and you can buy beef liverwurst for $10 a pound. It's 100% grass-fed, organic, pasture-raised, and it's 20% liver, 20% kidneys, 10% beef heart, 50% beef trimming, and it's flavored. It tastes good. It's pre-cooked. All you have to do is warm it back up. But we've made tacos with it. We've thrown it in salads. We make them on the side of eggs for Bear, and he eats both of them. It's really good for the immune system, really good for energy levels and cardio. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. I mean, if I'm not going to eat veggies, I'll eat the meat and just live on organ meat and be good to go.
What is it again that determines whether you can absorb proper nutrients?
Yeah, I want to take that.
So it's basically your genes, and half the people on this planet don't really support plant-based diets very well.
Is it like a haplogroup, or what is do you know?
I don't know which exact group it is, if it has to do with where you're from or any of that stuff.
Like, how do you figure this out? Yeah, that's what
go to 23andMe and purchase a DNA test, and then once you get results, they'll tell you a little bit, but they don't tell you a lot. They kind of got muzzled from the FDA a while back, but you can outsource that to foundmyfitness.com, and all she requires is a donation. It could be $5, it could be $10. And she'll show a number of markers that are critical, like how your body processes vitamin D, how much vitamin D it produces. So both my wife and I don't produce much vitamin D3, and we have a lot of the enzyme that breaks it down. So even if we're out in the sun all day, it's not going to last long in our system. Other people are on the opposite end of the spectrum, where they get a little bit of sun and it lasts weeks in their system. So for us, it's really important to supplement with vitamin D3 for that very reason. But I mean, she has a number of things like this that really take a look at what are critical factors, how you should eat and how you should live.
I'm definitely going to check that out. I have
Yeah,
done my
now I wanna
23andMe.
do.
I have done my Viome. And between those two, and then, of course, I have a naturopath doctor I do my blood tests and nutrient levels and all that stuff with regularly. I did keto. I was pretty much in ketosis for like 5 weeks straight. I really gave it a good go. And my digestive system pretty much was at a complete standstill. I went and retested my blood, went to my doctor again because he actually prescribes usually the Primal Blueprint diet, which is close, keto close. He looked at my labs. He was like, whatever you're doing, stop it right now. He was like, you're one of those people that needs some carbs mixed in there. So I don't know what that means. I know my haplogroup is like D1E or something like that, which means I need a ton more sun than I'm getting, which my vitamin D is always low unless I'm supplementing. So yeah, I feel you on that. But I introduced carbs back in and my hormones and my nutrient levels all shot back up. So it was strange, but
Yeah, well, a lot of women have issues if they go really keto, and part of that has to do with a lack. So if women fast for too long or they do really long intermittent fasting on a daily basis, over time it'll fuck their hormones up because the female system is meant to have all things on deck. That's the way you reproduce. If you are lacking any one of those major nutrients, if you ate zero fat, it'd be hard to have kids. If you ate zero carbs, it'd be hard to have kids. All these things play a factor in your own personal feminine body, right? So I think understanding that, a lot of women too can get away with more carbs and still be in ketosis. So you could have upwards of 75 to 100 grams of carbohydrates and still get away with it if you're working out and still be in ketosis. So you can have kind of the best of both worlds. For me personally, it's funny, my genetics, and same with Aubrey Marcus, they showed we had a very high likelihood of being obese and a very high likelihood of type 2 diabetes. Now,
Whoa.
if you look at me or him, you would think that's bullshit. But if you look at the rest of my family, you're like, yeah, for sure, for sure. We have type 2 diabetics on my mom's side, and quite a few people are obese. So just because you have the genetics for one thing doesn't mean your body will express that disease or issue if you treat it right. And that's really what it boils down to is, we used to have this idea that whatever our genetics were, that was what I was doomed to be. Like, oh, I have thick bones, so I'm going to be fat. Like, no, you just can't eat pizza and fucking cheeseburgers like your friends can because you don't have the same metabolism. And you will get fat from eating shitty food. Or if you're loading up on sugar all day long, that's why you're fat. Not because you have big bones, you're an octomorph or any of that bullshit. Yeah. It just has to do with what you're putting in your body.
It's tough. We all are trying to follow one certain diet and stick to it so strictly and not listen to our bodies. It's like, we got to figure out how to really, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of homework and trying out shit and seeing how you feel. And that takes a lot more work than I think people are willing to give for the most part.
Well, and food is quite convenient. I think a great place for people to start is the book Wired to Eat by Rob Wolf. It talks really about how we are wired to eat and why food scientists are a part of a $1 trillion industry creating shitty snacks like Doritos and stuff with MSG. It all boils down to what flavor combinations will allow us to eat more and consume more. And scientists are pretty good at figuring that out. So, eating less ingredients in your food and really just having simple meals can be a great first step. But Rob details everything in Wired to Eat. Yeah. Also, equally importantly, he talks about which carbohydrates are right for you. The only way you know that, no matter what your genetics are to test your blood sugar. So if you do postprandial blood glucose and it skyrockets after you eat white rice, like it does for me, I probably shouldn't eat white rice unless it's only after a really hard workout. Right. Other than that, I can eat a whole plate of sweet potatoes and my blood sugar looks great. So there's a right carb and a wrong carb for everybody. And listening to people talk about it like myself, it doesn't do you much good unless you go out there and figure it out for yourself. So a little homework goes a long way.
For sure.
So I do low carb, really high fat, but I also do the intermittent fasting for 16 hours every night. Is that too long?
I think it would be good to get some blood work done. Wellness Effects has a really good blood panel that you could do, and I could take a look at that and help you with it. But as long as the blood work checks out and your energy is good, that's a great, if you can't afford blood work, that's fine. How do you feel? If you feel good, you're likely on track. Now, that'll change over time. You know, it's no different than a pregnancy. First trimester, you hate French fries. Second trimester, you want ice cream. Third trimester, you want pickles. Like whatever the case is different for everyone, but it is important to listen to your body. So if you feel a lack of energy or you start getting sick often and your immune system's weak, odds are you're pushing the envelope a little too far. And you don't have to do away with intermittent fasting altogether, but maybe go to a more moderate window of 12 hours fasting, 12 hours eating. I think that does really well for a lot of women. But as long as it's working, stick with it. And then if it changes, and you can make modifications.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a few short questions we ask everyone who comes on the show. First off, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
I love this question. All right. Breathe deeply, often.
That's
that's
gold.
it right there. Just fucking breathe deeply and do it often.
If you figure out like time machine situation, go back and tell me that 25, please.
And then just trust. Trust in the divine nature of where we are. Trust in the unfolding path that you'll take, and know that it gets better every fucking year you're on this planet. Every year it gets easier. Every year as you fucking are burned through the fire of experience, you become wiser, you embody that knowledge and have just true growth. And I think as we grow and we learn from our experiences, there's no greater teacher. And I think in those experiences, we do become different people. So being open to change and knowing that it gets better, just having trust in that, I think would be really important for my younger self.
I love that. If you could have the whole world read one book, I've seen your bookshelf, but which would it be?
I think the most comprehensive book people could read on health would be How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek. And there's, I talked about Qigong and Tai Chi. There's a lot of, he calls them zone exercises to not offend Christians. But they directly correlate to the chakra system. And that continues to this day to be one of my most powerful teachers. It's an incredible book. Just for life in general, by far my favorite book, the one that I've read more than any other book on this planet, is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Yes.
I've read that 12 or 13 times. I'm going to read it again for Fit for Service.
I try to read it every year.
It's priceless. There's so much knowledge in that. I pick up something new every single time. That's why I keep reading it, keep re-listening to it.
And you and me are the same. When we're like, when people say the power of now, we're like, just read A New Earth.
Yeah. Fuck all that nonsense. Power of Now is cool, but it's like it pales in comparison. Yeah, for people who like Audible, like I do, just be aware that he can talk very slowly.
Yeah.
For some people, it's very soothing.
Yeah, it's very soothing to me, but I mean, shit, you can fall asleep listening to him. So it might be better to get the hard copy if you can't get if you don't take his voice.
I think that's my problem. I've read both The Power of Now and A New Earth, but I read A Power of Now in hard copy, and I read A New Earth on Audible, or listened on Audible, and I was not jiving with it the same I was The Power of Now. So I'll have to get the hard copy for sure.
Imagine the earth.
And then he'll just pause for like 3 minutes. You're like, this shit turn off? Yeah.
Then the first flower opened up.
You did really good.
Witness its beauty.
It is perfect. We actually have Eckhart Tolle on today, guys.
Yeah, it's actually been Eckhart this whole time. Oh. All right. If you could whisper one phrase to everyone on the planet, what would it be?
What stuff?
Just try it.
Yeah, there's a whole new world out there.
Your life. So, Kyle, before we let you go, where can people find you on the internet?
So I'm off Facebook, but I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Kingsbu, KINGSBU. And then if you want to take a deeper dive, listen to the Human Optimization Hour podcast. We have a wide range of guests, from people who talk about plant medicines to Native American wisdom to how to change your habits to how to learn more efficiently with Jim Quick. I mean, and then, of course, fighters and different people. So if you got fight fans, we definitely have some fighters on the show. We've had Brian Bader and Uriah Faber and a number of other guys. So it's still a part of my life. I'm still a huge fan of the sport, even though I definitely see the faults in it. But yeah, Human Optimization Hour. And, I've been on a number of other podcasts as a guest. So if you want to hear me speak more, I recommend people check me out on the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. For sure, one of the favorite interviews I've ever done. We go over 2 hours on that. And then if you want to laugh, you can listen to me on Ellistronic. Get stuff in the ass. And you can. I re-listened to that. I could tell how fucking nervous I was before it happened, before it went down, because I thought we were just going to do it and then podcast after. I didn't realize we were doing it on the podcast.
Oh my God.
He had a camera on me. I was like,
what if I shit myself? I don't know.
Yep. Turned out to be all right.
Good.
God. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Kyle.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
We love you.
Good to meet you, as they say as a kid.
I'm sure I'll see you in the next 24 hours.
That's right. I'll see you in the morning, buddy.
Yeah.
And I will see you at our event coming up, which is so
Yeah.
exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be super cool.
For
See
sure.
y'all in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you end up doing Audible? You did, right?
The Audacity, yes.
Or, sorry. Yeah. The other talks in my head. If you just send it as a wave through WeTransfer, you can send it for free on that site.
So it'll be stop and then go up to file, export as wave.
All right, so stop. Then I go to
File, and then there should be a little export arrow, export as wave.
okie dokie.
And then, name it something you can find it and all that good stuff. And then it'll pop up a little screen with all the metadata. And on that, you can just press OK or save or whatever it asks you to do. You don't have to actually do anything there. And then once you do that, it might take a minute to save that file, like literally a minute, probably most. And you'll go to WeTransfer on your browser. We'll just do it with them now so we can make sure that goes.
It was about an hour and a half, so it might take a little bit, but when you can walk away from the computer. You don't have to.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, once we do this part won't, not the Audacity save.
Just the WeTransfer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
it's a little while.
So once you're on WeTransfer, as long as the Audacity is saved, like it's not on the screen anymore, pull that file into WeTransfer and then send it to our producer. I'll give you or actually, you want to send it to the Magic Hours email, Jade, or what are you doing now?
If you want to do Adam at redfoxaudio.com.
First, let me go to WeTransfer.
Yep. Now I get the pillows, a bear and a wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. iCloud Drive.
You guys envisioned, or you had a ceremony or something, both you and Tosh, that told you Bear was coming too, right? Before.
Mhm.
Yep. Before a month before it was just a child. Then a month later, we saw it was a boy. And within a month after that, we were pregnant with Bear.
Wow.
Well, I'm trying to add my file, but I don't see it.
So sometimes that means it's not done saving from Audacity.
On Audacity, is it still spinning or saving or whatever?
No.
Did
Save.
you?
I export as Wave. Let me put it on my desktop.
There you go.
It's documents.icloud. Yeah, that's what I'm in right now. iCloud Drive. Oh, never mind.
It sometimes it does that to us.
I didn't click on the documents portion. There's a folder there. Here we go. All right.
Cool. Once
Email
it's
to
attached,
what is
Adam@redfoxaudio.com. Hello. Look, Jade.
Hey, Hal.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
Right. Transfer is being sent.
Okay, cool. So then the last thing to do is just keep open your computer while it sends, because it's going to take like a while.
Okay.
And if you close it, it will stop sending.
All right. I got the 5G going, so it shouldn't be that bad.
Sweet.
Thank you so much.
At 1% per second, so 100 seconds.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'll see you on it in the morning. I'm just going to eat my breakfast there as a cookie shake.
We're out of cookies. You're going to have a different
Oh,
shape.
my God.
We're out of cookies and ice cream.
Oh, my God. Going on a week now.
I know.
What time are you bringing the babies over?
So is like 9:30 okay?
Yeah. What
Okay.
time? Your podcast at
10.
10? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, I thought it was earlier.
No, I like 10 o'clock. Gives me time to let the caffeine hit me.
Gives me time to let the caffeine wear off a little bit. Okay, cool. Do you have any idea what we're talking about?
Tasha and I are going to discuss that now, but we've been discussing for the last couple of days. Mostly, we'll talk about your background, what you've been getting into, how the importance of mentorship, and you can talk about Tom and your relationship there. We'll talk about plant medicines. We can talk about BPI, but I definitely want to keep it as like user-friendly for bros as possible.
It's really out there wording.
You can for sure go deeper on plant medicines. That's not a problem, but because they're used to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, just like I was with my parents at a psychic conference, and a guy drove by, and he goes, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And I was like, "Fuck you!" So people have that idea. So it's not as mainstream as I'd want it to be. But I think it's totally cool talking about that stuff. Just wrangle it as best you can.
Yeah.
The masses, and it'll be good. And we'll talk about the podcast. We'll hype your guys' podcast. Talk about the guests that you've had on, what you've learned. That's something I like to do with all my guests. Is if they have podcasts, is bring up some of their favorite interviews and what they learned from those guests. So we can dive into that stuff as well.
Paul Selleck and Peter and Tom. And now Kyle.
Oh, Peter.
It airs on Wednesday morning.
Well, cool, guys. I'm in a gym. I got to call Aubrey. It is transferred. It says, you're done.
Oh,
Download
wow.
the little 7 days. I got 5G. Come on, son.
I don't know what that's doing to you. I don't know if that's an issue or whatever.
I unplug it every night. I'm good.
I need to do that.
Listen to the Nick Pino episode on Optimization Hour.
I will. All right,
Okay,
guys.
so see you in the morning.
Yeah, great.
Okay, love
Thank you so
y'all.
much, guys. Love
See ya.
y'all.
Love you. See you in the morning.
Okay, bye, Jade.
Bye. Okay. So, why are you smiling so big?
I don't know, because we're going into this next piece, and you don't even have to say anything. because we know now.
Oh, that was good. I love him.
I know, that was really well. I've listened to so much of his show, and I've heard him so much in so many other places, so it's cool to just get to pick the dude's brain on all the stuff we want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like every time I'm around him, I have like 10 questions. So it's like that annoying friend that's like, hey, oh, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
And then you just keep asking questions. But at least this time it was like he knew it was a Q&A.
He knew it was coming. He knew it was coming. I like it.
So what's your magic trick today?
So my magic trick is a tool for how to heal yourself from issues around eroticism, and specifically in regards to feeling sexually suppressed or sexually unsatisfied. This trick actually comes from a previous Magic Hour podcast guest of ours, the sex expert, Peter Craig, who we know and love now. And he says to write out a few of your most exciting sexual experiences to see if there's a reoccurring theme or themes in them. And apparently, there's usually something to be learned around the unresolved emotional hurt in your childhood, which is playing out through your fantasies so that it can be re-experienced, but in a healing way. Well, that's pretty cool. And Peter actually gave us a reference for where he found this technique. It's a book called The Erotic Mind by Jack Warren. So besides trying the technique I just mentioned out, I'm also going to pick up a copy of this book and give that a read. And then I would also invite any of you listening to grab a copy for yourself and read along with me if you feel so inclined.
I do feel inclined.
You do? Good, because I'm doing it. You're doing it, little people. Maybe we can all get a little closer to our healthiest, most sensual, most erotic selves. That sounds good, especially after this conversation.
We just love you, Peter, for bringing this into our lives. Also, if you haven't listened to that episode, it's one of our absolute favorites. So go listen to that. It's episode number 20 and 21. Yeah, so thank you. Good. Thanks for that reminder, Mercedes.
What's your magic?
Well, this isn't the first time I've done this, but I'm changing my mind on my magic trick last minute. So It's going to be a free flow also. And I'll use the one I had planned for on another episode. So my magic trick is to try out ecstatic dance. I know that it's easier to do it in your living room. Just throw on a song and just dance like crazy. But what I'm asking you to do is actually seek out an ecstatic dance group in your city. I just went to one in Austin yesterday morning. There was over 250 people there, and they were just dancing so freely and so joyfully that, I have goosebumps just talking about it right now. It's crazy because the night before I was crying because my heart was hurting about something. The next morning while dancing, I was crying because I was feeling so much gratitude and joy that I was just overwhelmed with it, and it brought me to tears. And so there's people that are slow moving, people who are dancing with like this huge ass grin on. There's people meditating in the corner. There's people sitting there and just having the same effect as I have, and they're just crying while watching other people dance in freedom. And it's like I have had goosebumps the whole time I'm talking about it because it's just so powerful. And it takes you a little while to get
loosened up.
Like, I don't recommend going in and leaving after 30 minutes or an hour if you feel it's not for you, because it literally takes me that long to get comfortable enough to dance like a cuckoo bird, because that first 30 minutes, you're judging yourself. You might be judging others. You're still thinking about whatever's on your shoulders at the time. After about 30 minutes to an hour is when you start to really realize that you are free from it all and you're free to dance. And that's when you start to just enjoy it. And then that's when you start getting the downloads. And I'm a very visual person. And I've talked about on the Lynn Worley episode about my vision that I've always had in the midst of transition in my life, which is me walking across this river or body of water. And I walk on these stones over to this other side of more peaceful land, and then I go cuddle with this lion. I've talked about that before, right? Well, in the beginning of this ecstatic dance on yesterday morning, I had that vision, but it was so dark. It was like storming, and it was just murky, and the lion was like covered in blood and like red eyes, and it just was very evil looking and very dark. And it was so interesting that I had that visual because I've never ever seen it look like that. I've never seen it look dark. Well, then by the end of my ecstatic dance, I had the visual again, but when I walked over there was like all these beautiful butterflies, and the lion was just so soft and sweet, and put me under his arm, and I cuddled like the other vision. So it just was like there was some of my own personal insights there about where I'm at in life. But it's just, if you really let yourself be free to receive, even soberly, you can really, really get some amazing, almost plant medicine like
Right.
experiences, actually, completely sober.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I think Whitney Miller, when we had her on, she said of all her plant medicine ceremonies, ayahuasca, whatever she's done, wachuma, she said that ecstatic dance, her first
yeah.
dance ceremony, was the most
Yeah.
groundbreaking ceremony, as it were.
And we talked about that with Eric Godsey too.
Yeah, interesting
Both
stuff.
good
And
episodes. Yeah.
in every culture, dance is such a integral part, every culture. Even the ones that you think are stoic, and the Russians or something like this, they still have dance in their culture. It's still such an important part, because it brings so much community and freedom. And if I think done in the way that we're talking about here, it can be really freeing. It can be really uniting of the community. And it's funny you bring this up, because just the other night I went to a dance, like a nightclub. I don't know if they call it dance clubs, but a night.
We're so old.
I know.
Who knows what they call
I went
them
to a
these days?
disco. I went to a disco the other night, and oh my god! But I went to a nightclub, and I was like not looking forward to it, because I used to go dance. I know what that scene's all about, and I just don't feel in line with that now in this time in my life. And the dancing that was happening there, or lack thereof, it was more like zombies staring at a DJ and like pumping their fist, and just you couldn't even move, so you can't even like have space for movement or dance. And I felt like icky from it. Like, it just felt like it was not a freeing place. Rather, it was everyone judging each other.
It, though, yeah. And everybody is usually there. They're using other substances, to feel their freedom. And so it's a low vibration in the entire place.
Yes.
Whereas when you go to an ecstatic dance with the mindset of like letting go of your ego some, and you're using the dance as your way of freedom instead of whatever other substance. It's just so different. And also, most ecstatic dances start off with a meditation where you set an intention, and then they close off with a meditation, and that part is just as important too,
For
but yeah, I
sure.
used to love dancing in clubs and never had this effect. Sure, it was joyful, but
Yeah. With your dancing with your friends and stuff, you can have fun, but I don't think I've had a euphoric experience, that I could call like almost like drug-like or something. So I'm excited for our event coming up, though, because I'll get to see what that's all about. If I could let down my guard and discard my ego for a moment and get in the groove, as the kids say.
yeah. And also, so in whatever city you live in, for everyone that's listening, it may be hard to seek out an ecstatic dance. I know in Austin we have like 5 on any given Sunday, any given Saturday. It's a pretty cool town, but just look it up on Facebook. If you have to drive an hour, I'm not saying do it every week, but just find it, because it is going to be so worth it. So yeah, that's my magic trick. Seek out ecstatic dance this week.
Yeah, buddy.
Or
And if
this month.
Parangi's leading it, you best show up. That's all we're saying.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right, Magic Mobbers. Thank you so much for tuning in and taking this journey with us. If this episode held some magic for you, please share it with your friends and family. This would mean so much to us. And don't forget to join us on our Instagram page at The Magic Hour, and let us know what your favorite episodes have been so far, because we really want to know what's lighting you up.
Yes, we do. And by the way, guys, you might already know, but if you don't, we release a new episode every Wednesday, so look out for that. You can catch us again next week, or go listen to some of our past episodes in our podcast library, of course. We'll meet you there. Until then, be a light.